But
Absolutely, yes.
really, good. It should.
And North Point Engineering from Concord, their team member has them on staff, and they intend to do that. Okay.
Theoretically speaking, going with Bob Dev's saying, you know, you come across the wetland, it's not where you expected, you have to put the parking somewhere else, you need to move the building 90 degrees or whatever.
It's not going to be that much,
But just theoretically, you have to adjust.
Adjust, yeah.
And theoretically, the price tag on the whole thing changes. Now, theoretically, it could even go down possibly, but if it goes up, well, it might.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You're only authorized to borrow so much.
Okay, so
We
So-
know the financial.
so then if the building
parameters
doesn't, the project doesn't get done, is that?
No,
somewhere else.
Sounds like we have a copy.
project sometime might have minor modifications, but it's not gonna not get done.
But it won't go above whatever,
You can't.
you know, might be approved.
You can't.
So it could be a totally different,
No. I don't believe it's gonna be
Building.
totally different at all. But the fact of the matter is that when the warrant article is successful, it comes in $1,900,000, $20,000, and that is the amount of money that can be expended. You can't expend more.
And so
Short of having another town meeting, and we're not gonna get to that point, so.
the first thing will be to have North Point here to do a true assessment of the site, wetlands and other, not just that, but other items. Have a geotechnical engineer come to do borings where the addition's gonna go to determine what the subsoil conditions are, what the bearing capacity is, and all of that with the revised site plans will direct the design team of where we can go and what we will need to do to work within the site and within the budget, because we have a goal of 1.92, and that's it. So if the building has to get a little tweak here and there, if we end up not doing some work in the the existing side and renovation, we may, you know, there's gonna have to be some give and take, and that's why having a construction manager on the team at this stage and through design is so essential, because they have their finger on the pulse of the cost of construction, can make recommendations to the design team, and we work together as a group with the library trustees and staff to kind of make those decisions to get everything you need and come in on the price. So first things first, getting the site determined completely, where the wetlands are, and what the geotech says the subgrade has.
follow up. So just in the hypothetical situation where you talked about where you're making some changes, so you might not be able to do the renovations to the old existing building, or upgrade or whatever, in order to keep in that price tag.
Yep.
Are we just gonna, a couple of years later, this is not really a question for you, I guess for the trustees, a couple of years later, you're gonna come to a town meeting and say, well, we could only spend this much on the you know, the addition, so we weren't able to do the old part, so now we need another however much to renovate the old building, you know, two years down the road. But in the long term, that's one price, you know, to do the entire building. So that would make it not 1.92, it would make it 2 something.
The renovations that we're talking about in the old portion of the building are not that dramatic, first of all. That's not where a lot of the money.
Well, they
lies.
could be anything though.
Well, we could put a hot tub in the middle of the building, but we're not going to do that. So the fact of the matter is, perhaps we'll deal with the vestibule, the front vestibule, the front entrance, and the manner that perhaps we were thinking about. But we are comfortable with our numbers.
That's true of any building project though, Max. I mean, they can start doing borings and find out the ground isn't suitable for supporting a building. Any project this is true of.
Isn't that why you
Well, I
have
think we were
contingency?
told for years that no addition was possible.
That's what we believe.
What?
So maybe that is true.
No, I don't believe so. And as Bob was going to allude to the fact, that's why we have contingency fees built into
Right.
projects. And we have contingency fees built into our numbers here. For just the unforeseen things that happen. But we don't have a crystal ball. Nobody has a crystal ball when it comes to construction. You never know until you have to start getting into it. You plan accordingly. And that's what we're trying to do with this project.
And in a couple of years, if you need to do the renovations to the existing building, those are not gonna be
They're included in this.
large numbers.
I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what's gonna happen in a couple of 5 or 10
So
years.
you can't commit to the town that you're not gonna spend another $1 million.
I can't commit to anything. The town has to commit to us. Think about what you're saying. No, we don't have the power to spend money. The town approves through the legislative body what can be
You
spent
won't,
and
you
not
won't commit that
spent.
you're not gonna ask for another $1 million.
Andre,
It's a moot point. You're asking me a question that cannot be answered.
would you
How can
you
we answer that
explain
question
what a project takes and how you move through a project with
that-
field changes?
This is my segue right here. I just
Maybe
have-
you'll understand.
There's not a
I'm chomping at the bit.
There's not a commercial project that doesn't get built without some field changes and some contingency demand. I mean, nobody has, as Gordon says, nobody has a crystal ball. This is an estimate, and it's the best estimate that professionals have come up with, and to come and throw different scenarios of what could happen and when nobody knows, I mean, that's ridiculous.
All right, well, let's just take it.
One back.
I think I understand the design process that you've been going through, and you've got this wetlands area that has been roughed out by White Mountain Survey, and you feel reasonably confident that you're, let's say, within 95% of the envelope that's going to be available to you. But my basic question is, wouldn't it be more efficient at this point to go back to White Mountain Survey and get their work certified, and then at that point turn it over to your in-house engineers, rather than going now to the in-house engineers and having them come out and resurvey the wetlands area?
Can I just answer his question? These people have to have their own engineers and survey people come because they can't build their building until they do that.
Well, I think that if I
And
understand...
I would add to that what has been provided from a local wetland scientist is not the level of detail that we would expect.
Well, apparently, it's an uncertified drawing, so it's not intended to be as complete as it should be. And what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be more efficient at this point?
Have our own crew do it?
No.
Oh,
Wouldn't it be more efficient at this point to at least get the White Mountain Survey Company to certify the results that they've presented to you thus far as working papers?
I thought we talked about contacting them to.
Oh, is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
That was working still
I
off that.
misunderstood. I
Oh,
thought
okay.
you were going to recommission the whole thing again to a new company down in Concord.
No, I'm just saying that North Point has them on staff, they plan to do this, so we're gonna check it, even though it's been certified. But what we need are actual computer plans.
Sure.
Not hand drawings, because that's the only way that we are able to work within the margin of error that we need to be able to place the building, so.
All right. I didn't hear that, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. I apologize.
All right. Andre,
You're up.
No more questions?
I'm gonna grab a seat now.
So, some very good questions, and hopefully I can kind of alleviate some of the things you're thinking about. At this point, this is the specifications and these are the plans that we're starting with. When these folks are done, the specifications get about this thick and the plans get equally large. So the way construction management works is that you go out and get some competitive proposals from construction managers, you select one, you bring them on board at this same way you do an architect. And we work under the owner, with the architect, to develop a budget. It starts with a very small set of plans and specifications, and we continually update the budget as the project progresses. So one of the big keys is, if the project gets approved, then we really jump in with both feet to refine numbers. At the end of the process, every part of this project is competitively bid, so that lumber, all the subcontractors, all we do is provide supervision, so every part of that, just like the Tufton Borough Fire Station was competitively bid. So the town ultimately gets the value of competitive bidding. The thing about construction management is it's a completely open book contract. So if the library says, geez, we forgot we wanted to add another light in this room, I go to subcontractors, please price this. I bring the price back, show them their quotes, and they say, yep, that's good. Where does that money come from? We have a contingency line item, because as perfect as these guys try to be, you can't think of everything. And when you dig holes in the ground, sometimes there's things you didn't anticipate.
Yep.
The contingency is created for the purpose of, we found somebody's old Ford Model T in the ground, we're gonna have to take that out and put some extra soil in there.
I'm sorry, I hate to belabor the point, but I'm new at this, and listening to the questions and the concerns, I don't understand how we got here without understanding the wetlands. I mean, this is wonderful to understand the process and to see the renditions, but it's the cart is before the horse. We need to understand what you can build before.
I think that we have a fairly high relative confidence of what we have here, and work has
But
been.
you think we don't have
Well-
the certification or the data, and I'm just sitting here struggling with, I appreciate you taking us through the process, but this might be a waste of everybody's time.
I don't think that anyone from the trustees or from our organizations would try to waste the time of the town or the finances of town if we felt that there's no, other than, extreme embarrassment by saying, oh geez, it doesn't fit. Why would we do that? We have studied these plans and we feel quite confident that an error was made at some point and that we have the ability to fit this. And as Anthony said, maybe one parking spot is gonna go here instead of there, to fit around where they are, but that's not a major cost to do that. It's probably no cost, it's
And
just
it's
a matter
not
of.
a project killer either. It's just, at the stage that we're in, with what we've been asked to do, we have confidence in the plans and what we know what we can do. We just need to get the rest of the team on board to actually have it certified and have it designed right out. And we are comfortable with things, and it's just that's the process. We plan, we're comfortable, and only until we get the rest of the team can we confirm everything.
I think some people in town are just confused because for about a decade, is my understanding, because I moved here in the middle of that decade, the town was told that it was a project killer. This
We were told.
area.
We were told it was a project.
Well, you told the town.
Well, that's what
The
we
people who were-
believed for 10 years.
People who wanted to build across the street conveyed, I'm sure, honestly in their own belief, but that was the reason to build across the street. And maybe, across the street, was a better option, but for many years, can't build here because of the wetlands.
What?
The building across the street failed, so now all of a sudden, the wetlands are not an issue. That's confusing. So,
We worked around the information that we had. You know, when we were brought on, the idea was to build a new building on the other side. We never even looked at this lot, studied this lot, or confirmed the information that the town had been provided years prior. We weren't focused on this particular site. Not
I'm not
until
addressing,
not until this year, last year, when we started looking closely at it, was it clear that there was a confusion between the overlay and what the site survey showed. And then it seemed, from our perspective, that there is enough space to do the project here on this site. Knowing that some adjustments may need to be taken into consideration with the parking, or a slight adjustment to the building's placement, just like we're talking 2 feet one way or 1 foot the other way. So small adjustments that will be shaken out during the design time. So, sorry for interrupting, it's just,
being interrupted.
okay. We're trying to, resolve the longstanding needs of the community and the library, and utilize the space that you have, and being frugal and Yankee in that manner by working off the building you have and working within the bounds. And everything that was told prior is kind of like, that's outside of our area. We're just focused on this right now.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I
Thank you.
just say one thing, having been on the building advisory committee, and we all looked at that original wetland issue. In our report, it says the wetlands are an issue. Since that time, though, Max, it's come to the Board of Trustees' attention that maybe what everybody was looking at was not correct. Somebody made a mistake a long time ago, it appears. So now we are able to revisit this. I was one of them saying, what do you mean? We did all this research, now we don't have a wetland issue. So I get where you're coming from, but it does appear there was a mistake made a very long time ago.
Aren't you glad it was discovered and we can save some money?
Yeah.
Andre, for the record, what Carla said, I was involved in the verbiage for people who liked the project across the street. There was no effort to mislead, ever.
Never.
It was the best information that we had, and it's been going on for years.
But
No
nevertheless,
misleading.
The reason for that building was the wetlands, as I understand it.
It-
One reason.
it's- it-
One reason.
It certainly was a
of many.
factor,
One of many.
And now it's not.
correct.
That's confusing.
It's, right now, it's about saving some money too. Skip brought a new plan to the trustees, and they did their due diligence and thought, okay, how can we save the town some money? That was another thing. I thought, wow, we have this beautiful plan for across the street. But this isn't about anybody being tied to one idea. This is about providing for a need that the town has without breaking the bank. We're saving the town a considerable amount of money.
Not really, because that building doesn't exist. So we're not comparing to that building. We're not saving money on that building.
If you were going to build across the street, it would cost you a lot more than what you're doing here.
Right, but we didn't build across the street. and
No,
we're
we
not going
didn't.
to.
But we were going to go with that plan again another time. Go back to the voters with that plan. And then this came about. So it is about what's best for the town.
Sir?
To cut through the conjecture, what's wrong with the letter being submitted by White Mountain indicating their view of the work that they've already done so far, in terms of the risk of their calculations being disruptive and not being able to build this project. What's wrong with that coming in? I guess I'm missing this. We're making an issue out of things that don't exist at this point. And it's all part when we get into the actual construction, when you do your test borings and all the other necessary things for your site development, is when you take your minuscule and you look at the site. That comes later on in the project. You've got your contingencies. Obviously, no construction is going to take place if the state comes back and tells you you're in the wetlands and you can't do it. That can't happen.
It
It's not
can
gonna get to
happen.
that.
The state isn't gonna automatically come out and look at this. It's only
They
gonna
will
come-
if you ask them.
Well, who's gonna ask them? Really?
Why wouldn't we in the process of building? Why wouldn't you involve the state if there's some question about your
Because it
wetlands?
costs more money. You need to get White Mountain Survey to certify this plan, that this shows accurately the limits of the wetlands.
That's
Simple.
what I'm-
It's so simple.
What's the
They
matter
should be
with-
able to do
What's the
that.
matter with the letter?
We'll be on the phone Monday morning. We've established we're gonna do that.
Right, so.
Okay,
So can we move on?
So can we, yeah, it's a non-issue, you know.
It is a big issue,
It's a non-issue.
because you want this to be accurate.
Absolutely.
Greg Howard is an excellent soil scientist, White Mountain Survey is an excellent survey company. I don't think either one of them, makes.
But we're not gonna solve
mistakes
that
like
here
this.
today.
No, we're
And-
not.
And so why can't we move on?
We
and
can,
hear
but you need to
Andre?
get it certified.
It will be done.
Okay.
Pay for it, Carrie.
I'd like to tell you I remember where I was. Kind of don't. So what we've done in the early part of the process is look at the addition, and again, it's a preliminary drawing. We try to work closely with the architects and the customer to ask questions about what do you want. We're working with some local people who have expressed a willingness to make significant donations, in one case windows. Not sure exactly how that's gonna impact, but the cost of the project, but this is all part of the process. And as we move forward, the design reflects on these potential contributions. We look at what we can afford within the budget. The budget is given to us by the customer, and they say, listen, this is what the select board feels the town will support. Here's where we have to work from. And so that's how we will go. And when a contract gets signed, we guarantee that the cost of the project will not exceed the amount that the voters approve. We talked about the contingency that's in as part of the project. If none of the contingency gets used, that goes entirely back to the voters. So at the end of the project, on Tuftonboro Fire Station, there was money returned from that budget at the end of the project because the contingency wasn't used in its entirety.
I think it's also important to mention that Andre has his own contingency, so his own line item for the construction portion. And then on the other side of the line, we have an owner's contingency that provide, there's gonna be some furniture and some fixtures and chairs and things that they have money aside for, but they also have a contingency to go into the project. So there's two contingencies that are in there that make up the total amount of the request of 1.92. So if either of those are not utilized completely, they'll go back.
So as plans get developed, we continue to price things, on a budgetary basis, so that as we approach, having the final bid documents, we already have a very high level of comfort as far as what the project's going to be. So things like, the two-story entry tower. Maybe it's in, maybe it's out. That's one of those things that we look at and say, geez, we had some other surprises when we did soil testing or whatever. Maybe that can't happen. But we don't go out and cut parts of the project out. It's just we try to make them, as affordable and efficient as possible. And again, it's a very open book process. We worked with the customer at all times and the architect. So we're trying always to get the best value for the dollar for the town. That's our job. That's what our reputation is based on. Our company's been fortunate enough to build 6 libraries in New Hampshire. We're working on 3 more. So we have a pretty good idea of what costs are involved in doing a library and how to control them and things like that. So that's our job. We're supposed to be looking out for the taxpayers of Tufton Borough and for our customer at all times. And if you're unhappy with something we're doing, feel free to call me. Yes, sir.
For anybody who doesn't know, I'm Guy Pike. I've been involved in construction of one kind or another pretty much most of my life. Industrial buildings, residential buildings, power plants, name it. At town meeting, a very small handful of people are going to be burdening the taxpayers with any number of debt items. This lady mentioned pound-wise and penny foolish, or penny foolish and pound-wise, however you want to look at it. There's a bunch of people that only look at the number and what you get for that number. And I want to apologize to the library trustees that they have to go through this, because truly dollar and value-wise, the building across the street represents a much better value than this addition and renovation does. So I'm sorry, trustees, that small group of people can't look past their noses and see what they would get for less than half, again, as much money as this addition and renovation. Thank you.
And you do bring a good point. Skip's initial concept of adding on to this building, it is saving you some money, but in the long term, a new building might have been a better choice. But you know what? It's the cards that are dealt, and I think the trustees and we're trying to do the best that we can with what we're hearing is what the will of the people is. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you on a personal level, but we're the dam, right?
Yes.
So this is kind of how the process will go. We're hoping for approval. I know it's been a long battle to try to get the library approved. As I said, we've been very privileged to work with a number of communities to build libraries for them, and it's always the same challenges. People question whether libraries are passé, and I can tell you that every library that we've completed have been a huge success for the town. They're very, very well used. They become centers of gathering for many different age groups, and they do research. So, think positive. I think it's going to be something that's really well received by the town. So we're excited about trying to get you guys the dream that you have been working towards for so long. As far as right now, we're telling the trustees a construction budget of about 1.533. That includes the renovations that Anthony discussed in the front of the building. And the idea being that we want to give you a truly energy efficient building, which will reduce your heating costs, reduce your electrical costs. The LED lighting will make a huge difference in your electrical costs for really not that much of an expenditure. Just a nice facelift as far as flooring and new acoustical ceilings, so that it looks really sharp throughout the building. Your cost per square foot, and I just did a study, you're probably saving overall the whole building, maybe $40 a square foot. Libraries seem to be costing about $250 per square foot these days. I think your construction cost, if you factor in both old and new, is going to be in the $210. So this method or scheme that has been proposed is going to save some money, and I think that's hopefully gonna help people support it. Other questions for construction? Yes, sir.
I like the plan, you know, it's pretty impressive, and, but you said something that just kind of caught my attention. I
Uh-oh.
wonder if, you know, we really can't look at the future that clearly, we just don't have crystal balls. But, you know, there's a point in my mind that says that at some point, the need for hard copy book storage might go down a little bit. And I'm wondering if you might want to make an option within your design to someday possibly have stacks in the meeting room and take the front area of the library and possibly use that for larger meeting rooms. And so if you were to get radiant heating, and that was the comment that you made in the meeting room, that would preclude that as being a possibility. So I would just like to offer that.
No, that's a
I
good thought.
think the main thrust I'm hearing throughout the town is that the trustees are promoting the library to be more of a meeting center. And it's just hard to say, you know, 20 years from now, that might be a very strong need, and the need for actual physical storage of books might be much less. And, you know, we hear noises about electronic storage and that sort of thing. So that's why I mentioned it to you.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we've noticed and heard from other libraries that have been completed is, you know, having some small spaces where people can gather, you know, 3-4 people for a little meeting is a wonderful asset. It's a place where you can go and study or work on some project. So I think, you know, spaces like that are very well received. And I think the design gives you some pretty good flexibility. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Gary has a great point. And for anybody here who doesn't know, inspired by a guy introducing himself, I'm Max Ledoux. And yeah, that's a great point, because we don't know what libraries are going to be used for in 20 years. I mean, libraries as a, you know, the Carnegies were building libraries literally 100 years ago, you know. So in some ways, well, not in some ways, in almost all ways, we're a lot different than 100 years ago. And so, yeah, what kind of, you know, different uses will the library have in the coming years?
Flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility, because, I mean, listen.
It's all open space
It's all open space.
that we're proposing. So there's nothing really static in this building as to how it could be reconfigured as years go on.
Well, you said something about putting radiant heating in the floor, and you can't put shelves where radiant heating is, and that's what caught my attention.
We've got stacks out in the children's room, right on top of radiant heat. The
All
whole
right,
children's
well,
room is
that's-
stacks on top of radiant heat.
Yeah, you just don't anchor them.
Well, that's what I meant. You used, you.
But we're kind of looking at maybe a VAV system, you know, for the heat, which is variable air volume. You know, it gives you lots of controls, so you can control different areas, you know, different spaces in the library.